Hello, this is Richard at Expedition Tracking, and this is a video for March 2023, just to highlight some of the changes, mainly interface changes, that we have made over winter. So if I go and start across with a map, I'm looking at an event here which took place about a couple of weeks ago, and I'll use this to illustrate some of the changes. So what we've got here is a fairly standard looking map. Looks like there are 3 or 4 routes. Let's have a quick look. There's a 13, a 20, a 34 and a 50-mile route shown on this page at the moment. I'm sure you're already aware you can turn all these on and off at your leisure. Anyway, the interface changes I'm referring to in the first instance are on the participants bar. So the participants bar is here and has been widened and expanded. We are actually going to make this a little bit wider for a desktop version so you don't have to scroll across. So that change will be made very shortly. But what you'll see here is some additional fields. You won't necessarily see all of these columns if you have not populated them with the data. So for example, for a Duke of Edinburgh award event, unlikely you would be selecting a nationality, so you wouldn't see this column. Age category, unlikely you would see this column either. Similarly, for groups, you don't necessarily have to add that as well. But what you will definitely see is this new column here called favorites. If you've got a large quantity of trackers out and you don't want to see them all on the screen at once, you can just go down, select the ones that you do want to see, and when you were to click that, you would only see these and you would only see the same ones on the map. Now at the moment this event isn't live, so you can't see any of the flags, but usually you would perhaps just see the 4 that you're interested in. To undo that, you can just simply click and that will return it back to the way it was before. Okay, the next change, just getting ahead of myself there, if you were to click on the person's name or click on the magnifying glass, which is an existing a piece of functionality which you will have used in the past, the screen now changes. Previously, when you click that, you would just see a couple of little buttons down at the bottom here which said download the GPX, download the KML file, and navigate. Instead now what you're going to get is the entire block is replaced with a specific focus on this particular tracker, this particular individual. And again, this will change slightly depending on if the event is live. Now this event is in the past, so what you can see on here at the moment is the tracker, or the bib number should I say. You would see if they've been assigned to any group. You can use groups, for example, red team, green team, and these kind of things, which is different to what you would use for the name in case you wanted to group them somehow. It shows the distance that this device has been around. So it's been around, by the looks of it, the 50-mile or the 80-kilometer course, and it did so in an average speed of this. Remember, this data you would only see if you've actually added a GPX file onto your route and assign the trackers to them, which you can find more about in one of the other videos. I'll very briefly signpost you to it at the end of this one. Below that, what you can see is the time that this tracker reached each of the checkpoints that are on that route. So we can see here there's checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, 3, 2 checkpoint 3s by the looks of it. I think they visit that one twice. Checkpoint 4, 5 and the finish. And this shows what time they reached each of those checkpoints and the sector speed, the speed that they did in kilometers per hour. So for example, from the start to checkpoint 1, this person averaged 9.8 kilometers per hour and it was 12.8 kilometers in total. In the next section from CP1 to the rail crossing, it was a little bit faster and the distance a little bit longer, and so on and so on. Now, if the tracker is on a live event and they haven't yet reached these checkpoints, these would all be, the ones that they haven't reached would be grayed out and it would say ETA, estimated time of arrival. So it may say 8:48 here and then say ETA 9:18 or 9:16, and that data updates every minute, so you can see quite an accurate ETA. So this is useful to be able to focus on one specific group or person and find out exactly what time they would be expected at all of these other checkpoints. Previously, that information was only available on the kind of rank or leaderboard area, which I'll show you again in a minute. There are some other buttons down here. Right now, if you go down to this one, this is the one which shows the history or the track. If I click on that, this black line now appears, and the black line is the trace of that person. Again, this was already always here, but it's just been moved to be enabled by that particular button. And if you can see, there's a little white dot there that's moving across. As I drag this scroll across the bottom of the screen, 818, 825, 832, it shows where that was. Again, this was an existing functionality. We've just moved the location as to where it was before. So if I now go back, you go these other two options here. You've got download as a KML file, download as a GPX. They were both existing options, as was one more. When the event is live, you get a fourth icon in here, which I'll show you that is on a live event right now. Let's see, is there one I can find? I'll find one for you. Here we are. So this is an event which technically is currently in progress at the moment, and you should be able to see now this extra icon here. And this is the, again, not new functionality, we've just changed the location. This is the Google directions to participants. So an example of this is if you were out in the field and a group called to say somebody was injured, you needed to go and find them. If you were to click on that icon on your mobile phone or even on any other device, it will launch Google Maps and plot a route from where you are standing to reach that location. And as with all the usual Google controls, you can choose to arrive either by car, or let's launch this and just show you what happens. You can choose to launch it by car or by walking, and it will show you the route. So it's a quick way of you being able to find your way back to that group. Okay, so let's drop back onto the main page again there. So those are those four new icons. You will see different data depending on if the event is live. I'm not sure it'll show on this one here. Let's just check it. It may do. Yeah, you can see a little bit of extra information here because this event is currently live. You get a couple of extra fields. You get the last update time, the time the tracker last sent some data. You get the battery percentage. You also get the grid reference, and you'll get a current speed as well as an average speed. So when the tracker is moving, that data would also be populated as well. So you do get a little bit of extra information on there. Okay, let's drop back to the main one again now. So they are the main changes to the sidebar. We are adding new features all the time, but let me also take you over a few changes which are on the leaderboard. It doesn't have to be used as a strict leaderboard. So obviously for Duke of Edinburgh Awards, they're not races, they're not events, but it is still useful to see the times that they reached perhaps your checkpoints if you've added a GPX file with some checkpoints inside. So at the top of the page here, you've got each of those four routes that you could see. So if you've assigned, these would equate perhaps to the four GPX files. If you have got four different groups, you would assign each group to a different distance or a different route, clockwise, anti-clockwise, whatever it might be, and that's where you would select them from here. So when I change this now, you'd see more people appear in this one. What you can also get it to show is change it from clock time to elapsed time. So rather than saying the actual time they reached there, it would say they reached there in 1 hour and 5 minutes, 1 hour and 31. For me, I think for DVs, it's more useful to see the clock times, what time they actually arrived there. The additional functionalities we've added in here are ordering. So you can order by the rank. It would be the first person to reach the first checkpoint if they were all on the same route. You can order by the bib number, the race number, or whatever you've assigned the flag numbers to be. You can order by the name, so it puts them in alphabetical order like that, or click it again to put it in descending order. You can order by the distance that they've reached, how far they've traveled as well. So we've added all of that extra sorting on there. Now there is another video which shows you how to assign each group to an individual event. So if I was to look at this event, the Welcome Way, and click on the edit down here, There's 4 GPX files which have been uploaded by the organizer, and here we can see all that big list of participants. This is where right now you would normally go in and you would type the name Group 1, Group 2, Gold 1, Gold 2, whatever you call them. So you can add and change that anytime you wish. You can add and change the flag or the bib number. The group you can change. The group is really just a free text label. So if you wanted to split groups into morning, afternoon, or male, female, and things like that, you can just populate that with whatever you like and just type in there, and those groups would appear on that main page. Nationality, where you can choose from a drop down all of the nationalities, not so applicable for expeditions. Age categories, again, not so applicable for expeditions, but you can choose age categories, and that helps in a ranking situation. But these two are useful for Duke of Edinburgh expeditions, and they are start time and the route. First of all, the route. If you've uploaded 4 GPX files, you'll have 4 options to pick. So you will want to, for example, assign Adam to the 13-mile route. You might want to assign Adrian to the 34-mile route, and this is where you would do that. Now, usually the trackers will default to the start time of the event, which is typically most events are set up to start at 5 o'clock in the morning as a default. Now, you can change that. If all of your groups are going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can simply go back into your main area and change this to be 8 o'clock in the morning. However, there's usually it's common for groups to start at different times, the staggered start. If you want very accurate estimated times of arrival, speed, distance, and times, you can add the time in here, and that's just hour, colon, minute. So you can change that to 7:31 or whatever you want, and that then would ensure that the accurate timing on that leaderboard would be absolutely spot on accurate to the minute. Finally, these 2 items, if you was to click on this icon here, it would make the flag translucent. There's a good example of that actually on here. You can see this particular example. This one has been set up as an admin, and that just makes the tracker see-through. For example, if you wanted to make a difference or make a visual difference between your supervisor trackers, if they were to have them, and the students, then you could set your administrators to be admin. Click the little box for admin, and that would then make them see-through, so they're easy to spot at a glance. The final button, not so much applicable to expeditions, but you can mark people as retired. That would then remove them from the leaderboard, and it makes the flag turn black. It makes this flag here go jet black, so it's very easy to say this person is no longer participating in the expedition or event, so you can take your focus away from them. You can of course click the button to completely remove that, but we would never recommend doing that for an expedition. Best thing to do is just set them to retired or simply power the tracker down. You can find out a lot more information about this in the other videos which are on the YouTube channel and will have been shared with you in the welcome email pack. So I'm not going to go into a lot more detail about setting up events because this isn't the focus of this one. It was mainly to tell you about those changes to the sidebar and mapping, which hopefully will give you some extra data and focus to be able to look at without having to go and find all of this data buried somewhere in the leaderboard. I hope you found that useful. As always, there are lots of new features being added over we've added lots over the winter. We're adding more over the next few months as well. It's a constant development cycle. Any suggestions or changes which you have, we're always happy to listen to those and add them to the development list if there's a good case to add them. So thank you very much for listening, and we wish you well with all your expeditions this year.